Hi, this is Alicia, and today I want to talk to you about project management and accounting. So far in the prior videos to this, we created a project, we created a budget, we also did a timesheet and expense, and we did an hours journal, a fee journal, an expense journal, and then we created a purchase order and tied it to a project, and we created a sales order and tied it to a project. So our objective today is to take a look at the posted transactions. We're also going to look at our budgets to actuals, and then we're going to invoice it. So that way we can kind of complete that cycle. Again, I'm trying to keep this very basic, so hopefully you'll be curious enough to go in there and start exploring in project management accounting. So we're going to take a look at our project. So project management accounting, and then all projects. And we're going to find the project we've been working on. And the first thing we want to do is let's take a look at our budget. So up here under control, if we click under project budget balances, we can see that so far our original budget was $21,500. And then if we go down here and see, this is what we have. So we had $15,000 for hours, $5,000 for expenses, and $6,000 for items. However, you don't see anything under the committed columns, and that's because we haven't invoiced anything at this point. So we're going to go invoice, and then we'll come back here. Before we invoice though, I want to go and manage, and then posted transactions. So these are all the transactions that we've posted against this project so far. You'll notice that the invoice status is chargeable. So chargeable means that it can be invoiced but has not yet been invoiced. And one of the things that you don't see here on the screen is there's actually something called a transaction ID. So if you were to personalize and add that to your screen, that transaction ID is what ties it back to the sales order line and also to the purchase order line. So just kind of know that there's more behind the scenes than what you're actually seeing here on the screen, and again, you can personalize your screen to add those things. So there's multiple ways to create an invoice proposal. You can do it from this screen on invoice proposal, or you can go back to the project under manage and say invoice proposal, or you can go down under project invoices and do invoice proposals. Or if you're doing consolidated invoicing, meaning that you want to invoice multiple projects at a time against a contract, you can go into project contracts and you can invoice multiple projects for that contract at one time. So there's lots of different ways to actually invoice, so just kind of be aware of the different options. So here we're going to go into invoice proposal, and this is going to be our invoice date. Now just a little trick here, if you wanted to backdate this invoice, you have to go over here and change your end date first and then put in your backdated invoice date. Otherwise you can't actually backdate the invoice. So here we're going to say our funding source is here, and again that's from our contract, and then here's our project. So there's two projects for that contract, but in this particular case we're just going to invoice the one project. The transaction types tells the system which types of transactions you want to invoice. So in this case we're going to do sales order line, and we're going to say packing slip here. All right, and if we wanted to restrict the date range, we could do a start and end here and say search, and then it would find just transactions for that date range. That's particularly helpful if you're invoicing for the prior month. So some people will invoice every month and they just want to see the transactions from the prior month. So by putting that start and end date, that way they just get the date range or the transactions for that specific date range. Okay, here I'm going to invoice all of these, so I'm going to say select all. And we can see their invoice is going to be $2,528.75. And then I'm going to say OK. You'll now notice that we're on the invoice proposal screen. Here you can see the project, and again, if there were multiple projects that you were invoicing it together, you would see the list of them here with their names. We have an invoice amount because we haven't actually, this is prior invoiced, past tense, so we haven't invoiced prior, so that's why it's 0. This is how much we're invoicing right now. Let's see, and down here are our transactions. You can see those. If you needed to add a line here, you could do that. If you hadn't loaded them all, like in our case, we loaded them all, but if you got here and realized you left one off, then you could go back and do that. You can also create fees here if you wanted to, instead of doing a fee journal ahead of time. So there's just multiple ways of things that you can kind of manipulate or change at this phase as well. If you want to print it ahead of time, you can do that as well. So you just go to print, and we can say print preview. And again, this is the invoice format it's going to use right here. This is invoice template. So you could have different templates for different contracts or different customers. So this is a pro forma invoice, and again, it's pro forma because we have not yet posted it. So this is what it would look like. So you can go in here and see the information and see if anything needs to be changed before you post it. So I'm going to go back out of here, and now I'm going to, also you can look at the totals. If you want, you can go in here and make sure the tax is right, if we had tax, and some other things on here. So just, you can verify your totals there. Once you're satisfied, you just click post. And then we're going to say post. I'm not going to actually print it since we've already printed it once. Once the posting is complete, we can now go back and look at our posted transactions, and we should see that they say fully invoiced.